So, as I was coming up, in my younger adult years, I always heard, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have a family and have a successful business. Or you can't have a family and be in corporate. I did all those things.
So your life experience showed you that just because somebody says it doesn't make it so.
Yes. However, the still resistance came with that, and it didn't come from me, it came from other people.
Well, other people who you calibrated to. In other words, you listened to them enough that it felt logical to you.
Not so much logical. The resistance came from them pushing their beliefs on me and me pushing mine back.
There is no pushing. There's only attraction. So if your receptor wasn't in the same vibration as their transmitter, there would have been no connection. So you can blame the transmission or you can accept the receiver. But when somebody's broadcasting on the radio on 98.7, do you have to listen to it or can you change the dial?
Change the dial. So, yes, I get that. However, as I went on, I would continue to be successful against those barriers.
Yeah, you can be successful against those barriers unless you accept them as barriers and you're muting the success that you're having because you accept that the barriers are a factor that they don't need to be. The tricky thing is how to not accept the barrier that somebody else has presented without pushing against them. That's why we had quite a long discussion earlier today about everybody gets to think what they think and feel how they feel because the universe is large enough to accommodate everybody and you don't need to be the right one. They can all be right and just different.
Yes. Yes. Because there's no right answer. That's how I always say
There's no
that.
right answer for everyone, but there's a righter answer for you right now based upon what you are wanting and what you are doing. Your inner being is always calling you toward the path of most allowance. We've been calling that the path of least resistance, but oh boy, when you get to that tipping point where you're really allowing yourself to get into the flow of what your inner being knows, that's attraction on steroids. When you really get to the point that you've clarified to yourself that you can be or do or have anything, and the source energy knows everything that you've been asking for and has gathered up all the cooperative components, and there's a whole host of things ready to burst onto the scene into your manifested experience, and you accept that you're worthy of that and that you're capable of that, oh, that's when life really starts to be fun. When you hold a thought and there it is, and you hold a thought and there it is, and you hold a thought. The energy that creates worlds flowing through the tips of your mind toward things that matter to you.
And that's where I was. And I've done so many things, accomplished so many things. And I was married in 2016. We raised 8 great kids. And of course, we had them prior to being married. And that, again, goes with not going with the flow of everyone else. Anywho, we build homes, we build businesses, we raise children, and in 2020, my husband passed away, and everything went to hell from there.
Well, it didn't. It just felt like it did. Something really big and something really unwanted and something that you described as unfair or unwanted. Did it challenge your belief in how this all works?
It took me out.
Well, it's understandable. Esther remembers that too. When Jerry took off, she wasn't ready for that. She thought he was invincible. Why would we be having this much fun and he would take off? It took her a while to understand the asking that they both had, that was the answer to. For one thing, an understanding that there is not death, even though that sucks to even hear those words when somebody that you care about isn't still there with you. Esther had been receiving us for a long time. I mean, many, many years before Jerry made his transition. And then she couldn't find him. And the reason she couldn't find him was because he was a very vivid personality and presence in her experience that she had calibrated to. And now he was just missing. And it took Esther a while. Finally, she heard the words from us, look for him where he is, not where he was. Where he is. And of course, she'd listened to us long enough to know that he still is. It just felt like he must not be interested because she couldn't find him. She couldn't hear him coming back to her. But it's because she was looking for him to be as he was in his physical rather than as he is in his non-physical. There's a difference, you see. There's only wanted. There's never lack. There's never pushing against. There's never any irritation about anything. It's just pure positive energy. And Jerry was a very positive man in his physical body, but he is pure now, unrelenting now, never willing to consider a complaining session with her now while he might have then. We're going to give you a way of looking at this that's going to at first seem a little off the subject, but it isn't. We talked about the man who had lost his fortune and was saying to us, I'm too old to start over again. And we said, but you have a vibrational reality. You have vibrational chips that you can cash in. In the same seminar, a woman got in the hot seat and said she is an artist coming from New York to California. On the way, her car was broken into and her portfolio was stolen. And that was the way she was going to present herself as an artist to the Hollywood people. But now she had no portfolio. And we said to her, but you have a vibrational escrow. And that portfolio was old news anyway. She had things in there that were her first things she'd ever painted, as well as some of the last things, but it didn't represent who she really is now. And so the point that we were making with both of them is that as you have lived all of that life with your partner, and before you met this person, and since you've been with this person, you have been knowing what you don't want, knowing what you do want, and you've been creating this vibrational reality that is your partner. Your inner being is your partner. His inner being is your partner. Esther remembers sitting and doing an editing on one of the subscription programs not long after Jerry was no longer there. And she thought, how am I ever going to do this? Because his part in this process was really involved. He sat and took the notes all through the seminar. He was the one that was choosing the segments. He was the one that was saying, start here and stop there, and we'll take that segment and start here and stop there. In other words, he was really integral to the process. And now Esther was sitting there, had a time deadline, and no Jerry to do his part. And she thought, well, here goes. I don't really know what I'm doing, but here goes. And she discovered that he was still involved. Impulse, start here, stop here. What do you think about this for a track title? In other words, she was faster and better than she'd ever been with his physical self. Faster and better than she'd ever been with his physical participation, because their minds were melded. His mind moved into her hands. His mind moved into her fingers on the computer keys. In other words, she was a better editor, better at everything. One day, she needed to have the swimming pool replastered, and she knew stuff about the swimming pool that she has no business knowing. She had never known it, but she was communicating with the contractor as if she knew, because others know, not just Jerry. You have infinite intelligence flowing through you. You are dependent on no one. When you've been in a partnership with another person and they're not there, it's easy to understand how you would feel devastated. What were your words? Lost everything. Upended. You used even a stronger word than that. It's easy to understand that, except when you understand that you've never been on your own, even when you were calibrating to other humans, that you've always had source energy pointing through you, and that sometimes something like that happens, which causes you to ask in a stronger way than you've ever asked before. And that certainly is the case. You're certainly on your feet now. You're bringing up stuff today that you haven't felt in a while, because this might be the place to do it. But we really want you to understand that there is no death and there is no loss of anything that you've put into your vortex. You have access to every desire that you've ever had. But sometimes things happen in the physical that make you shut down to them We understand what grief is. Grief is pinching yourself off from the love that would be there if you weren't focused on a way that you're feeling grief. Grief is real, and we understand why you feel it, but nothing has been diminished in your ability to attract. In fact, everything has been enhanced. We know we didn't convince you, but
I know that I had inner beings in support prior to him. I know that we had something together. So I know I'm not saying that my being or existence depended on him, but I feel like when he left, he took a part of me with him, but that's not...
These are the words that we want to give you. When he left, he took a part of how you perceived him with him, but has replaced it with so much more. So much more. Esther has a friend whose wife made her transition not long after Esther's Jerry did. And so Esther and this friend were having dinner occasionally. And Esther was wanting to explain to him her own rebalancing and how much better she felt and how often Jerry's around and so on. And he said very strong to Esther, my therapist says that I have to just let her go. And Esther said, okay. And Esther thought, that's the saddest thing she ever heard. Because, first of all, she's not gone. She's pestering him all the time. Every time he gets a little happy, there she is wanting to play with him. And so all day, every day, he's having to lose her again and lose her again and lose her again. He has to stand in that place where he won't let something very real and very big that wants to play with him in. You have access to infinite intelligence. If you are a mathematician, you have access to the best of them who are reveling in your new thoughts about it. If you are an artist, you have access to the best of them who are reveling in your process. Everything that has ever been is interested in what you are now. And all that has been in physical form that is now non-physically is focused with you too. That's why it gets better and better and better and better. Why humans deprive themselves of that is mostly because somebody convinced you along the way that it is your job to prove yourselves. That you have to come and do the suffering and the struggling and you have to prove yourself. And you really shouldn't look for assistance. And we say that is the most opposite of the way that it is. Oh, it is not the way that it is at all. And so we know that it's different, but it's not different gone. It's different present. It's not less love available. It's more love available. It's not occasional love available. It's constant love available. It's any time that you want. Esther, every place that she lives, there's a light in every place that she lives that Jerry has defined as his way of winking at her. Every place she lives. She has a new apartment now and no light has blinked. And Esther is thinking, there are lots of lights around here that could be blinking, but none of them are blinking. That morning, she went downstairs to meet a 5 a.m. pickup to go to Chicago. It was last weekend. And as she stood in the lobby of this beautiful place, she was the only one standing there. And as she was standing there, an automatic door that was going from the room she was in into another room that needs a key fob to open it, opened and closed, and opened and closed, and opened and closed. And Esther said, hi, Jerry. That's better than a light. It's far better than a light. That's advanced stuff you've got going on here. It's opened and closed and opened and closed. We're playing with you in that there is no limit to the way you can meld minds with those that you care about. Everything is becoming more and more and more and more.